over the last 20 years, say the 20 vintages, I'm producing wine. I've gone through different uses of corks, but you know, it's not just corks. Actually, we're talking about closures, what closes a bottle and keeps the wine inside. The obvious choice 20 years ago, but I still think today, is natural cork, with its, I would say, positive and also negative qualities or characteristics, not qualities. When we started, there was not much availability, and also I didn't have the equipment to be able to make certain choices, which we do today, where we're using a technical closure, which is called Ardeaseal. Originally, it was called Guala Seal. And so over that period, when we started to use the Ardeaseal, which was in 2015 on the 2014 vintage wines, all the years before, we've gone through cork, natural cork, through Noma cork, which is an extrusion, synthetic closure, to Ardeaseal. And so we have clients still asking, but why do you use Ardeaseal, and why this, why that? I would like to make first a small introduction in various closures, and just to understand where we started and why we are using Ardeaseal today. So basically, we have two different categories. A closure which is squeezed into the neck of a bottle, which can be natural cork extrusion, or a technical closure like Ardeaseal, which is a multi-component with different, I would say, characteristics. And then you have the closures that close or keep the wine in the bottle, not because you push something in the neck of the bottle, but because of a washer which shuts the bottle off and avoids wine being leaked out. This can be like a crown cap, which is used on some wines, and it's less popular, but it's also used in champagne for the aging, keeping the wine on the lees. And so it does have a good holding power. There are different qualities, and so it does work pretty well. And then the screw caps, which are widely diffused, especially in the New World wines. But also here, the same principle. This is rolled over a bottle which is fitted with thread on the top part, and so it closes, and there's a washer that does the job. Today, the technology moves on and evolves, and so you have different styles of washers. Washers that close permanently, that doesn't give any oxygen exchange, or closures that have a permeability, depending on the wine, the tannic level, and so on. And that is the same thing with the other closures, where you squeeze the closure into the neck of the bottle. And also here you have the same principle of oxygen exchange, or completely shutting off the oxygen, which is rare in the case of extrusion, natural, and technical corks. So when we started, we used natural corks because we didn't have anything else to use. That was in 2001. There were, I would say, the first, well, I'll call it good, extrusion corks, but you know, still they had lots of oxygen exchange compared to natural cork. And so it was still used on simple wines, on let's say wines that were destined for fast consumption, not for aging. And so still natural cork was the closure to put into a bottle that was meant for aging. The problem of natural cork is that as it's natural, it's a piece of wood, and you know, every piece is punched out from the cork plates and needs to be highly selected. So it is elaborate as a process. You need to have good technique, skilled people, and in the end, you never have one cork that breathes exactly like the other cork because it's natural. And so you have one cork that breathes a number of particles per in a time zone or in a time lapse. And so you have, in the end, a case of bottles where you have different evolution in not in the first years, but after 10 years of aging in a bottle, or 15 years or 20, you will have bottles that are a bit more evolved, others are a bit more fresh, because not because of the winemaking in the cellar, because usually it's one tank, but because simply the breathing of every closure, natural cork closure, is different per bottle, which is a characteristic of natural cork. And then the other problem, I would say, is that you might have taint, TBA, TCA, which is the classic. The wine is corked because it has the taint, which destroys part of the fruit of the wine, and so unfortunately you lose a lot of the quality of the wine. The great thing about natural cork, at least the good quality cork, is that it's resilient, it is very elastic. When you put it in a bottle, it has it really rapidly pushes back to the wall, and it shuts the bottle off in quite a quick way, and it ages very long. Well, I still remember the bottles of the 70s Barolos, which were where you pulled the natural cork out of the neck of the bottle. There were bottles that were at least 25 years old, and the corks were perfect. So that is something fantastic. So natural cork is great for wines and for long ageability. So moving into time, in I think it was 2007 or 8, and I have to get back into the files, but we started trying out a cork from Noma Cork, which was a Select, I think it was then called Select 300. And they were, let's say, they were designed and produced to have at least, it was 6 years or 7 years, it was guaranteed to have flawless, impeccable holding power. And I must say, when today we open bottles from 2007 and 8, they're great. They absolutely keep up really well. But still, it was not something I was looking for, as Noma Cork afterwards developed also a Select 100, and so for them the more fit and tight the material of the cork was, for them the better it was, which is not really the case. For example, natural cork can be more open knit than a Select 100, but on the other hand, it has a much longer lasting capacity, because of the nature of the material. So, I still missed something. I wanted to have like a combination of both. Exactly the same breathability per every bottle, and long-lasting age-worthiness as a natural cork. And obviously avoiding also TCA, TBA, because we are producers of wines, and we like our wines to taste like wine and not an external, let's say, bacteria or influence that alters the wine in a negative way. And so I found in, I think it was 2010 or 11, I read about this Guala Seal, which was an Italian invention, a company up north. And so I checked it out, and I went to visit this company, and we tasted wines that were bottled already 15 years. It was a Muscat, and it was amazing how well it kept. And so I was absolutely blown away, and it confirmed the hunch I had in what this technical closure was able to do. And so, talking with the engineers, it's actually a tri-component. It's a shuttle which goes in the neck of the bottle, and is in contact with the wine, there is this plastic polypropylene material which closes and gives a holding power in the neck of the bottle. And the whole key thing is this cylindrical inside, I would say, material or fixed frame, and that's what it is, which avoids when you squeeze the corks into these closures into the neck of the bottle, they obviously get longer. Here you squeeze it, it doesn't get longer because of the frame, it keeps the same length, and so it has a lot of holding power in the neck, and so it sits there firmly, steadily, and it does exactly the job what it's designed for. It breathes. It was designed to breathe exactly like the best corks, and after a series of tests, which means also really tasting the wines. And here you had the combination of long-lasting power, the holding power in the neck, the shuttle that does the job, and the whole construction of the cork lets it breathe in basically exactly the same way per every cork, and the same quantity as the top corks after the analysis. So the thing is, and one could ask the question, so why don't you use a crown cap or a screw cap? Because also here there's no TCA, TBA influence. It's got a good holding power, and actually a screw cap. And to be honest, it's great because think about picnics. You know, instead of having to walk around with a corkscrew, you just open it up, and when the bottle is not completely empty after the picnic, then you screw it back on, put it in the fridge, and come home. It doesn't leak, and so you know there's lots of arguments for a screw cap. And plus, it's recyclable. It's aluminum, and I think it's a great closure. Honestly, the thing is, it doesn't have this long-lasting capacity. There is the permeability, which you can today order, but still the long-lasting capacity is something wary. And also, there is something, but that is very personal for me. I love mechanics, and so when I look at these, you know, I have I would say a 40 millimeter thick washer, which is basically it, and here you have like 1 or 2 millimeters thin washer which sits on top of the bottle to close it, instead of having something more, I would say, massive, substantial in the neck of a bottle. And so yeah, that's maybe not really scientific, but it does give me personally a little bit more of a confident feeling that, you know, there is something substantial in that bottle as a closure, instead of having a washer closing everything. So, but that's, I repeat, it's that's a personal thing. So, you know, still I think this is a good option for, I would say, base wines, a rosé, for example, but still for what we want to achieve over time, I would like to have a closure that is performant over time. And so I'm very, very happy today, after using this for 6 years now, the Ardeaseal. And so it does exactly what it should do. So there, for me, this is a perfectly logical choice. It's and it's actually a great closure for maintaining the wines in time, giving them the right oxygen exchange, and not having to deal with problems with TCA or TBA taint. So one would ask, then why don't I see these Ardeaseals, if they're so perfect, on every bottle or on most of the wines? Well, there are obviously some drawbacks, which are price. It's not the most, let's say, inexpensive closure, so it costs as much as natural cork, and so that is an economical drawback. And the second is a technical, logistical drawback, is that you need to have a bottling line set up to be able to use these closures. And that is maybe an even bigger, I would say, difficulty. The bottles need to be absolutely perfect, as this cap that goes down into the bottle needs to be sitting perfectly well in the bottle, and so there cannot be you cannot use bottles, let's say, of lesser quality. They have to be perfect in the neck, so the quality of the bottle has to be really high, and there also that represents a certain cost. But let's go down in the cellar, and I'll show you in the bottling line and where, let's say, the technical drawbacks are. So the technical difficulties, or let's say drawbacks, for using these Ardeaseal technical corks. First of all, they go into a bottle only in one direction. This shuttle has to go in the neck, and so a normal bottling line, and the corks or the closures drop in and they go in random, either of one side or the other. In this case, you need to have that machine over there, which is an orientation machine, like in champagne corks, and so it positions the closures in exactly the right way, going through the tube up there, and you see all these closures sitting there exactly in the same way, with the shuttle ready to hit the wine, and not the other way around. So it goes all in there. So that's the first thing. So you need to have equipment. You need to invest more in your bottling line than, I would say, a standard closure. The second one is that your bottling line itself also needs to be modified. So we have, instead of the 4 blocks that squeeze the cork, you have an ultra slick funnel where the cork is being pushed through and goes into the neck of the bottle. So that needs to be modified also, which is a minor modification, but still, it needs more attention. The drawback I was talking about the bottle, the bottles need to be of a high quality, and so the neck of the bottle, many times they don't have an absolutely slick and a perfect interior of the neck, and so you end up with bottles of a higher cost, and so you need to double check them. We send them to the supplier, the manufacturer of these Ardeaseal corks, which is up in northern Italy, in Tortona, where they check whether the adherence is right, whether the diameter is perfect, and so that it's all a little bit more finicky and technical. So if you're up for doing that, I think that's a great choice. And, but as being said, it's not that simple to just say, like, okay, I'm going to use these, throw them in my bottling line. That doesn't work. Another problem, let's say one of the least, and which you should do anyway, also with natural cork or with extrusion synthetic corks, that the best thing is to create a vacuum before you push in the closure. But still, these corks, the Ardea ones, are a bit more sensitive to that, and so it's important to have a vacuum, that you have your nitrogen, your vacuum, the cork goes in or the closure goes in. Otherwise, there is a big pressure between the level of the wine and the closure, and that could create also a problem on the effectiveness in the longer aging. So the whole package, I think, personally works great and is fantastic if you can, let's say, handle and manage all those technical issues, and then I think you have a really great closure. Then the last, I would say, consideration would be, yeah, but why would you put this into a rosé? In our case, our rosé is not really rosé, it's like a light red, and so I personally like to have a closure for people who want to, I would say, play around with aging also our rosé, and so that's positive. The other part is a logistical issue where honestly changing or dismantling this corking unit and then putting another one in is a bit of a complicated story. So if you look into an automated bottling line, then I think personally it's much more efficient to say like, okay, we go from one closure or another and choose the best one for all the job. So this is great for Magma, for the top wines, all the Mungebel Crus, but honestly for the rosé it's overkill. So it's an extra that you have on a rosé, which is, you know, the rosé could do it perfectly well with a screw cap, honestly, but you know, it's also a matter of a logistical issue, and so we've decided to go for all the wines, and we go Ardeaseal, and then as you know, they're basically meant, even the rosé, for aging. So besides the question, why do you use these corks, which we explained, there's also the question like, how do you open a bottle with these corks, which is actually, it's kind of funny because it's completely like a normal cork or plastic cork. So you just simply put the corkscrew in. Not a good sommelier, so I'm shaking up the bottle, I shouldn't do that. So squeeze it in and pull out the cork. The only thing I suggest in this case, and that's for sommeliers, I prefer to put the corkscrew through this cap because you don't have any, let's say, powder or residual from natural cork dropping into the bottle in this case. And so this makes sure that you pull out the without having the cork to stick in, or let's say, if you put in the corkscrew only 1 centimeter, you would pull out the foam part and not the whole cork. And so afterwards, you simply take off the cork from the corkscrew and put it upside down back into the bottle, and it works perfectly.